All right, good morning. So we're up to Siman Reish Pei Beis, new Siman. Now we're learning the halachas of Kriyas HaTorah and of Haftarah on Shabbos. Interesting Siman. Says the Mechaber in Sif Aleph, Moitziin a Sefer Torah, v'korin by Shiva. You take out a Sefer Torah Shabbos morning and you lay and you call up 7 people. V'imrotz l'haisif moisif. If you want to add on Aliyahs, you are allowed to do so. V'uadim b'yontov mutar l'haisif al minin hakrim. And so to on Yontov, if you want to add on to the prescribed amount, in other words, it's 5 on Yontov, and you want to add on, you are allowed to do so. V'yesh oimrim, the b'yontov ein l'haisif. On Yontov, you shouldn't add on, you should only stick to 5. V'chein noag u'mdinas elu. Says the Ramah, that is our minhag, not to have more than 5 on Yontov. Milvad b'simchas Torah shemesifin harbe. Of course, we try and give everyone Aliyah. V'gam b'chol Yontov einam haftirin, meaning hakruim k'delekamon. The person who says mafta, who is called out for mafta, is not part of the 5. Okay, says the Mishnah, Berurah, Moitziin, yesh leimar brich shemei b'psichas ha'oren. That yesh leimar, you say brich shemei when you open up the Aron HaKodesh. Interestingly, in footnote 1, he notes that previously in Kuf Lamed Daled, the lashon of the Mishnah was minhag ha'olam leimar brich shemei. Here he says yesh leimar. I'm not sure exactly why he changes the nusach. So yesh leima brich shmei b'sichas Aaron bein b'Shabbos bein b'chol v'hanoisen sefer Torah v'hamekabel tzorich sheyehei b'yamin. You take the sefer Torah on your right side. V'afilu itze yad ein l'shanas b'zeh. And even if you're a left-handed person, you shouldn't change from that, and you should hold it towards the right. You can use the left hand to support. That's okay, but it all should be held to the right. V'korin by v'hi mitzvah midivrei sofrim, and Kriyas HaTorah is a mitzvah midivrei sofrim. V'hi takonas keduma Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom k'moshe kosov b'siman kuf lamed hey ayin sham b'Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says that Moshe Rabbeinu was misakein that you shouldn't go 3 days without Torah, and therefore we lay on Monday, Thursday, and Shabbos morning. Ezra was also Mesakim, you lay in Shabbos Mincha, otherwise, you'll waste your time, Shabbos afternoon, Yeshev Kronos, and therefore, you lay in Shabbos Mincha. Okay, we call up 7 people. Hine, says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Gimel, Bizman HaMishnah Hoya Minhag Sharishin K'shebekrim Hoya Mevarech HaBracha. In the times of the Mishnah, the person who got the first Aliyah would do the opening bracha, Shebach HaBonu, V'achron Hoya Mevarech HaBracha Lachareha, and the final bracha was only said, Asher Nosan Lana was only said much later on, at the end. V'haim Tzoyim, and the middle people, Kulon Hoya Yotzim B'brachos, and they were Yotzei with the brachas. V'achar kach, B'zman HaGemara, Eskinu Shekol Echad Yivarech Lefoneo Lachareha, K'moshe Noag HaYom, that every single person makes both brachas, the bracha before the bracha after. Okay, good. Sif Dalet. V'imrotza. So we said that if you want to add to the 7 aliyahs, you're allowed to. V'yesh omrim sha'ayom shekol echad me'akrim mevorech lefoneo lachareh kanal ein kedai lahosiv lahabras v'brachas. It's not a good idea to be marbe with brachas. Af mokem hatzerich gein chasna bris mila v'chol ki agavna ein lochash lazeh. But if, however, there is a pressing need, for there's a chasen for an offer, or there's a bris or something like that, then ein lochash, and you're allowed to be moisif. But you shouldn't start calling up too many people, because at the end of the day it's a tzircha for the tzibur, because it's going to slow things down. And if there's a concern of a machlekas, they don't get the aliyah, then you have to worry too much about only limiting it to 7 aliyahs on Shabbos morning if it's going to cause some sort of aliyah. I remember in Golker used to say that the guy comes in from Shul Shabbos morning fuming, he didn't get an aliyah. He says, tell me, it's a mitzvah to get an aliyah. He says, does he come on Sunday morning with the same passion? In other words, what is it? Is it because Yedim got the aliyah, or is it because you wanted the mitzvah of the aliyah? Kosu ha'chachrenim. We're at the top of the first column on Samach Aleph. So Kosu ha'chrenim, the b'Shabbos occur in Shtei Parshas. What happens if you've got a double sedra? Yesh likros minyan chatzi akrim me'ashiva b'chol sedra. You should try and split it. Zayin sheker la'arvi k'tzas me'aseda rishon. From the first sedra, you give 4 aliyahs. Me'aseda hasheni shleisha psukim al kol ponim. Okay, so you split it and you make sure that each one has at least 3 psukim. So, but you try and split it equally. And adding on to the second seder, i.e. the second sedra, that you don't have to worry too much about that. Because there's no longer chiyuv min adin lahisif. Not entirely sure what they're saying there. Okay, ein lahisif. So then the Ramah says that on Yom Tov, when you have 5 aliyahs, you shouldn't be moisif. Now, why not? So if you look at footnote number 16, he explains, and also Yom Kippur, where you have 6 aliyahs, the Ran in Megillah explains, because you don't want to equate Yom Tov to Shabbos. Chazal and Masakin, you have 5 aliyahs on Yom Tov, 6 on Yom Kippur, and 7 on Shabbos. Biyom Tov ein lo hosif al chalmeshes ha'ilim, kadei shelo yeh shav Yom Kippur. Because if you add the 6th one, then people will think, hey, this is like Yom Kippur. Or Yom Kippur ein lo hosif al shish ha'ilim, kadei shelo yeh shav l'Shabbos. That's really the point. So therefore, you should try and stick on Yom Tov to the 5. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sifkat Vav, or k'shechol Yom Tov v'Shabbos, lekula alma mutar lahosif al shiva k'moi b'shah Shabbos hashana. That when Yom Tov falls on Shabbos, you actually have 7, and actually it's okay to be moisif if there is a need. Just because it's Yom Tov in addition, doesn't mean you take away from all the miles of Shabbos. When Yom Kippur falls on Shabbos, like it did just now, then you should try hard not to have more than 7. Because it's sort of calculated that each aliyah finishes with a theme of kapara, and by adding on, you've spoiled that. But he notes in footnote 17 there are exceptions even on Yom Kippur, which falls on Shabbos. Amnon lekamon, he says, if the person getting the aliyah is going to give a very big nadava, then it could be that even on Yom Kippur, which falls on a Shabbos, you can add on to the 7 aliyahs. V'chein, next, I'm reading footnote 17, the second paragraph. V'chein magam sheyesh loch Hashem yigrem hadav lemachlekas kosav Orach shulchan shafil b'Yom Kippur ein nimches be'elu hameisif ma'aliyas. Again, if it's going to cause a machlekas, just add on extra people to avoid the machlekas. Okay, Mavad Simchas Torah. Now the exception, of course, is Simchas Torah. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sifkat Zayin, Dechdei sheyizke kol echad likra b'Torah be'ez siyam ha'Torah ukmi hadina kiyam b'karev ha'poiskim shematir na'hisif Yom Tov. To enable every single person to come Aliyah to celebrate the end of the completion of the cycle of Torah, we sort of allow everyone to have an Aliyah. Okay, and then in Sifkat and Ches that is going on the Ramah says that ein hamaftirin b'minyan ha'kruim. Says in the Mishnah Berurah, Tzolema de la maftir kari parsha b'fnei atzma b'chovas hayoyim, u'mizeh memele gam kein rai d'nagdin l'dina k'dei ha'rishona d'yontov mutar lahosif al minyan ha'kruim u'chudei l'kaman, because l'maisa you are adding another aliyah in addition to the 5. So mi'ikad din on Yom Tov, if you want to, you can. Although the minhag is to stick to 5 for Yom Tov, unless there's a pressing reason otherwise. Okay, good. Base. Mutza likros olim harbe, afal pishe kara zeh mashe kara v'zeh chayzeh mavarich. So in other words, even though you're repeating the kriya like we do on Simchas Torah, that if you need to do that, that's okay. V'yesh oisrim, says the Ramah. Although the Mechaber says ein bekach chrum, the Ramah says yesh oisrim. V'chein nagum dinas elu chutz misimchas Torah shenagu laharbes b'krim v'nagu kisvar rishona. So that's what we are used to. The only time we sort of repeat the kriya is on Simchas Torah, to make sure that everyone gets an aliyah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, ein bekach klum, the Mechaber says there's no problem to continue to read and reread to give more people aliyahs. Umikol makom eina oile min aminyan, but im loisha hosif loch alapach shnei psukim mamash shekara rishon. It only counts as one of the 7 kruim if you added at least 2 psukim on what the previous one did. The oz the eved oile min, then but the eved that counts. Or kamesh shekaz b'soif siman kuf lamed zayin. Chuzim b'simchas Torah yesh omrim du adin. If you've got an off-roof and you need to call up more people, and the only way to do so for a short sedra, I've heard of, it happened here in London some years ago. There was a b'mitzvah on a Shabbos Pashas Vayelech where there was only one sedra, not Natzom Vayelech, so that's 30 psukim, and it was a b'mitzvah of triplets. It does not get better than that. Right? It does not get better than that. So when you have a situation where you have to have a lot of aliyahs and there's not a long laning, so sometimes you need to repeat the laning. So says the Mishnah Berurah that aside from Simchas Torah, if you've got a chasna, that could be a reason for you to repeat the kriya. Aval minhagenu shlilikru lezeh mashekara kva echod af b'chasna. But our minhag is not to do that even for a chasna. Levad b'simchas Torah nagin krimo. Aside from Simchas Torah, that's the key exception. Okay, Gimel. Now here comes a very interesting sif. Who can you actually call up? Can you call up a woman for an aliyah? Can you call up a cotton? Can you call up someone who is not Shema Torah mitzvahs? So this is a major area that sometimes Gaboim have to contend with. Says the Mechaba, Hakol Oilim Leminyan Shiva. Anybody can be included in the 7 aliyahs on Shabbos. Afilu Isha, even a woman. For cotton, even a child, as long as the child knows to whom he's making the brachas. It's not covered at tzibur for a woman to get an aliyah. Says the Ramah, ve'elu dafka mitzdarf in the minyan hakrum, and they dafka can be mitzdarf to the minyan of the 7 aliyahs that are needed. Avaloshiu kulam noshim ketanim, but you can't have all 7 women or ketanim. The din evet kanani kadin isha, and never kanani has got the same din as an isha in this respect. Avol imo Yisrael, if this evet kanani's mother was Jewish, mutter la'alos, he's mutter to get an aliyah. V'also nikras bereish megula. Moreover, you can't get an aliyah where your head is uncovered. Ve'in isa likras amaretz nichbad oshe. There is no prohibition to call up an amaretz nichbad, a very important person, even though he's not a Talmid Chacham, he's not learned, but he's an important person, or Osher, and wealthy, for Gadol Hadar, which means I think like a Parnas Hadar. The Gemara often calls a Gadol Hadar a Parnas, the Parnas that he's like an Askan, he's a community, the president or something, the president of the shul or something like that, and they can even get in there Lifnei Talmid Chacham. Ki ein ze bizoyin Talmid Chacham rak covered l'Torah. It's actually a cover for the Torah. You're calling up important people. You're allowed to give an aliyah to a mamza. Okay, let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. The minyan shiva, avaloy minyan shleisha. So whilst the Mechaba and the Ramah both say that technically you are allowed to call up a woman or indeed a child for an aliyah, that's only true on Shabbos as part of the 7 kruim, but not on a Monday, Thursday, or Shabbos afternoon where you have 3 people. Then you should not call up a woman or a child. Over Oile Shabbos Kosav Oid, Du Adin Lemin Abo Chamisha Shisha Sheyesh Beresh Chodesh V'Yontav Yom Kippurim Gam Kein Ein Oile. So it only applies on Shabbos when there are 7 aliyahs, but not on the weekday during the week when there's 3, nor on Rosh Chodesh when there are 4, or Yontav when there are 5, or Yom Kippur when there are 6. V'cotton, says the Mishnah Berurah, you've got Yud Beis. V'afim ein sham kohen el cotton. So what happens if perhaps you've been in a situation like this? You're in a shul and there's no kohen around, but there is a kid who's a kohen. Can you call him up? So he says v'afim ein sham kohen el cotton korin oisei. He can read it. But the Magen Avraham says no. That if the only kohen around is a cotton, we're not obligated to call him up. The mitzvah saseh v'kidashta nema al kohen cotton, which is quite a big sugi in itself. The mitzvah saseh v'kidashta of honouring the kohen does not apply to a kohen cotton. So if you sort of walking through the door and there is a junior kohen coming through, you don't have to open the door for him and let him go, because the mitzvah of v'kidashta does not apply to a kohen cotton according to this. The haksiv ki es lechem elokecha hu makriv. The cotton lav ba'avodah is not part of avodah. It's not. V'chein nagin b'yamenu shekashein pesach knesses kohen shuben yud gemashana. If you haven't got an adult kohen present in the shul, kohen Yisrael b'mkoim kohen, we call up a Yisrael instead. V'afilu yeshem kohen cotton, even if there is a kohen cotton there, we don't call him up, we call up a Yisrael Gadol instead. V'yosim zeh nagin kayom she'ein kohen cotton klal l'shum aliyah. Nowadays we are not noyeg to call any child for an aliyah. Afilu im kvar nishlam minyan hakrum, even if you've got your 7 aliyahs and it's just his sort of an achron or is an addition, we still don't call up ketanim ela lemafter, unless it is for mafter. You've seen that sometimes in some shuls. There are some shuls that have that community, that minhag, to call up a cotton for mafter. Have you seen that ever at all? In Eretz Yisrael, it is done. Kosa Magen Avram B'Shem Masech Sofrim Shahanoshim Af Al Pi She'en Chayavos B'Talmud Torah Mikol Makom Chayavos Lishma Kriyas Sefer Ba'anoshim. So even though they're not mechuyev in Talmud Torah, a woman does have an obligation to hear Kriyas Torah. However, Ve'ein Nagis Lizoy B'Zeh. We're not particularly worried about this nowadays. V'Adarabba Yesh Mekomish Shenogish Anoshim Lotzes L'Chutz Beis HaKriyah. Some have the minhag for a woman to go out during Kriyas Torah. So let's take a look at the interesting note 25. Why is there a minhag in some places for women to go out during Kriyas Torah? Says the footnote there, 25. There's a because nowadays, Baruch Hashem, we take it for granted the women can read, they are educated, and they understand Lashon HaKodesh. But yesteryear, before Sorosh Nira, which is not that long ago, 100 years ago, many women did not understand Lashon HaKodesh. And it was not translated, the laning was not translated. And therefore they might misunderstand, and therefore it was considered like a bizoyin or it might lead to a takola. But nowadays that women do understand that they should stay in shul and hear Kriyas Torah. Now, this is very interesting. For Haisif Hagon Rebbe Yashiv, Shebemakom She'en Anoshim Mavina says that Lashon HaKodesh for Nogas Lotzes Beis HaKriyas Torah, in those communities where they've got that custom, a woman, Isha She'ichru Beis HaKnesses V'lo Yisbal Shachris. Well, a woman comes late to shul Shabbos morning, and she arrives when it's about to start Kriyas Torah, and she hasn't done Shachris yet. What should she do? Mistaba She'yoseh Tov Yisbal Shachris Bizman Kriyas Torah Me'asher Tetzeh. Better she should stay in the shul to say to daven shachris than to go out. Of a prat ba'ofen im tamtin ad lacha kriyas Torah yavers man tefillah, that she might even miss this man tefillah. So in times where women didn't understand Lashon HaKodesh and their minhag was to go out, if they come to shul late, better they stay in and daven shachris than go out and miss this man tefillah. Okay, let's carry on. Sif Cotton Yud Gimel. So we can call up, technically speaking, a woman on Yom Tov and a cotton, but only a cotton is sheyodeh lemim mevarchin. Says the Mishnah Berurah, mikol makom ein yochel yos makre es ha'olim. But he can't call up others. Da'anu sho yikra b'chol rom sefer Torah v'olim omrim achrov b'lachash. I think actually means the Kriya itself, the Kriyas Torah. We don't get a cotton to lane, and then other people will sort of repeat after him. And the tzibur are being yotze from the person who heard it from the cotton. We don't do that. We would want to wait for a person to be Yud Gimel Shana and to have produced Shtei Sa'aros. And if he's already 13 years old, we assume there's a chazaka that he's got Shtei Sa'aros, and a chutz mikriyas Torah, which is deraisa, for example, Pasha Zohar, we rely on that chazaka throughout the year. However, if there's no one else around who can lane, the Prima Godim is mesupik about it. Actually, you can have a cotton even if he hasn't got Shtei Sa'aros. If it means no other Kriyas Torah. Okay, so then the Ramah, was it the Ramah? The Ramah said that even though technically speaking you are allowed to call up women for an Aliyah for the Torah, that you shouldn't do kulam noshim. Says the Mishnah Berurah, oy rubam. It's not only all 7, but even majority is not allowed. And then we said an Eved Knani can, and if his Imam Yisrael, he's got the same din as an Isha, and if his Imam Yisrael, the Oz Havela Yisrael, Ma'aliyah v'chayav v'chol mitzvahs, if his mother is Jewish, then mutzah la'alos, we said. Now, you shouldn't get an Aliyah b'reish megula, hainu afilu hu cotton, even if he's a child, v'chein cotton shel pecheach, dahainu shebegadim kruim was rois of ksef of megulin, nebechul his clothes are like in tatters, also likros l'Torah, that's not considered respectful. And mutzah la'alos, that is going on what? The last Mishnah Berurah. It's mutzah la'alos mamza l'sefer Torah, shar yuchayev b'chol ha'mitzvah shebetorah kasha ish Yisrael. Now there's a very interesting footnote 29. Let's just have a look at that. What is the story with giving the Aliyah to someone who is not Shomer Torah mitzvahs? So if you take a look at footnote 29, so it's at the back there on page 19. I'm jumping into the second paragraph of this footnote. There's one exception that you can't call him. We said you can call up a mamzer. He's got a din of Yisrael, but therefore you can call him up. However, there's one parsha that you shouldn't call him up for. What is that? So he says in the second paragraph there in footnote 29, when it's that particular parsha, that's embarrassing him. Of all the aliyahs you're giving him, you're going up the parsha of Lo Yavim Mamzer. That's not an appropriate thing to do. Okay. Now, for the halus Torahs hanoshim she'enim shomrim Torah mitzvahs, calling up giving aliyah to someone who is not religious, kosav b'shar shuv zigrus Moshe, she'av shemi'ikar din ein issa l'asas kein. Even strictly speaking, there is no issa to do that. Shari osim anoshim ma'aminim b'Hashem yisparach ve'enim ovrim averes el te'oven. They're not really. It's not a theological issue. They're doing it because they like. I don't know. They like eating treif, or they like money and working on Shabbos or whatever it is. It's not appropriate really to give them aliyahs. There's no need to honor them. You don't embarrass them, but there's no need to honor them. Orach says the same. Even if there's going to be a bit of embarrassment by the fact you don't give them aliyah, that shouldn't change things. Because they've got to understand it's not appropriate to honor them, that they're standing there by the Torah making the bracha, etc. That you've chosen us to keep the Torah, but when they're not keeping it. So therefore it's not appropriate, says Rav Shlomo Zalman. Now, what about giving them achron and things like that? Shivas Akrim, to call them up after you've already called up 7 Shomer Torah mitzvahs. That actually that could be an eitzah, that would be allowed. Me'idach, however, the svara still applies because it's considered the bizoyin that they're standing by the Torah proclaiming Asher Bo Chabonu when they don't keep it. So therefore there wouldn't be enough kamina. So can you call up a non-shomer Torah mitzvah person to the Torah for achron? Then that would seem to be the subject of this debate. According to Moshe and Rav Shlomo Zalman, no. According to the Chazon Ish, then yes. However, if people who are not Shomer Torah mitzvahs have got yartzai, v'yesh lochash, the machlekes im lo yikabdu alav l'Torah, and they could cause a big machlekes if you don't call them up. Kosav b'shar shuv zikros Moshe she'ef shlachal. Even Moshe is allowed. It says you're allowed to be mekel. Alf min ha'olim v'chein ha'egonim Yaakov Kalnevsky. He also ruled that. Shuadin k'shebo l'shtatif b'simcha, and so especially when they come to mishtatif and a simcha. Just a couple more lines. V'imroitzim lasas minyan avur anoshim harachoikim me'ateiro mitzvahs kadei lekarvam. Yeah, you've got a kirov minyan, and you want to give them aliyah to bring them closer, and that's an opportunity. Yesh minyan biladeim, and there are others there. That would be allowed for kirov purposes to call up these people. And then just jumping to the last paragraph there. However, he says v'la'alus l'Torah reformim v'conservativim, to call up people who are reform and conservative. They've got a din of kaifer, and therefore ein lahalosom. So it's a very interesting halachas who you can and cannot call up, but everyone should take the guidance from their own Orthodox rabbi.